Welcome to the Virtual College Exploration sponsored by the Carolinas Association of Collegiate Registrars and Admissions Officers in Striveskin. We appreciate you all joining us tonight. A few housekeeping announcements before we get started. You can use the Q&A button on your screen to type your questions to the presenters at any time. Your camera and microphones are off so the presenters cannot see or hear you. This is just one of many different sessions that will be going on for the next month. So be sure to check out the full schedule at CACRAO.org. That's CACRAO.org. This presentation is being recorded and will be available within about a week at that same website. Again, that's CACRAO.org. Now I'd like to turn it over to our presenters.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it. Hi, everyone. We are so excited that you are here. We are thrilled to be sharing a little bit more with you all about essays. Thanks for coming to our presentation about writing the college essay, your college essay the ACC way, authentic, compelling, and contextual. We'll go ahead and start with introductions. My name's Patty Baum-Hayden, and I'm one of the Senior Assistant Directors of Admissions at UNC.
Hi, good evening. My name is Margie Strickland. I'm coming to you from Duke University in Durham, North Carolina.
And hey everybody, my name is Dawn Calhoun. I'm the Senior Associate Dean of Admissions at Wake Forest University. So coming to you from Winston-Salem, North Carolina.
So tonight we're going to be talking, like I mentioned, a little bit more about college essays. One thing that we do want to make clear is that this is not going to be a presentation about UNC, Duke, or Wake Forest. So this is a general presentation about college essays. We'll answer as many questions as we can throughout the evening, but if for some reason we don't get to your question, know that we will be following up with you after the session, and we can talk with you a little bit more later on at a later date. So let's go ahead and get started. The first thing we want to talk about is being authentic in your essay. And in order to do that, I think we really need to back up a little bit. Really, at the end of the day, what are we doing as admissions officers? What's my job? Well, as you think about it, when we're reading applications and bringing students into the university, offering them spots at the university, we're considering lots of different things. We're considering your test scores, if you have them, if you're even going to submit them this year. We're considering your transcript and your academic profile. We'll be looking at all the things you've chosen to do with your time outside of school, all of your extracurricular activities. We're also going to look at letters of recommendation, so we want to get an outside perspective on you. Some universities require interviews, some require art portfolios. There are lots of different things we're considering. We're also considering your essays. We want to know a little bit more about your voice. And why are we looking at all of this? Well, at the end of the day, our job is really to build a class of students who together will learn from one another, who will share their perspectives with one another, who are going to share their experiences with one another, because we believe that that is going to make you better, and that will make one another better. And we really believe that when we bring a class of people together who are willing to talk and work with one another, that they're going to be even better leaders and better citizens of this world when they graduate from our universities. So I'm trying to understand how you would contribute to the class at the university that you're going to, right? The university that I work at. We're trying to understand more about you. Now your essays, we're going to learn a lot about you throughout your application, but your essays are really a wonderful chance to tell us a bit more about you. So there are a couple really important things to know. In terms of being authentic, we really want you to be uniquely you. We want to know who you are. We want to know what matters to you. We want to hear about your life experiences and your perspectives. And at the end of the day, this matters because you're the only person who has ever lived your life. And I realized that when I was 17, at least, I thought, no, my life isn't really that different from my classmates and the people in my community. But it was different compared to the thousands of other students applying for admission to the university that year. So we're really trying to understand your story. We want to hear your voice. We want to understand what matters to you. And the more you do that, the more authentic you are in your essays and telling us the truth about the life that you've lived and what's important to you, the better job we can do to figure out whether or not you're going to be a good fit at our university. And at the end of the day, we want to make sure that you're going to be a good fit because we want you to be happy wherever you go. So that's just to kick things off about being authentic and why that is so important. I'm going to go ahead and hand this over to my colleague Margie from Duke, and she'll talk with you a little bit more.
Wonderful. So we went with ACC because, of course, we are 3 ACC rivals, but yet just want to make it clear that we actually all get along. I'm sorry to disturb anyone who is a big athletic fan, but the 3 universities get along well. The 3 of us get along well. So the C is for compelling. So next slide. So here's the thing. A college essay is not an essay. It's a misnomer. You are all taking English classes. You are learning what an essay is, right? An essay is you come up with a thesis statement, 3 supporting paragraphs, and a conclusion. That is not what your college essay should be. Your college essay is a story. It is your story, as Patty said. So you do not need to repeat the question in your opening sentence. Go ahead, next. You need to grab the reader's attention. We are reading thousands of essays. We know the prompt questions verbatim. You don't need to repeat those for us. Instead, grab the reader's attention with that first sentence. Think about something that happened in your life that changed the way you think about the world, something that changed and shaped who you are, something that, again, matters to you. And grab the reader's attention with that rather than going into just that formulaic template of thesis, supporting paragraphs, and conclusion. Next slide. You do not have to write about something dramatic. I actually was talking to a student one time, and she said she was really upset because her parents had not gotten divorced, because that would be a great essay topic. We do not want your parents to get divorced. We do not want you to set fire to your house. We want you to write about things that matter to you and that are important to you. And it doesn't have to be something dramatic. And perhaps something dramatic or traumatic has happened to you. You do not have to share that with strangers either. It's not the topic. I'll go ahead, next slide. That's important. It's about how you write about that topic that matters. You want to, again, capture the reader's imagination and attention with that first paragraph. And you want to bring your reader into the subject. So this is a great picture here. This young man with the Duke sweatshirt is actually from the Philippines. And this is a picture of him for the first time he ever saw snow. So if you can imagine the taste of the snow, the feel of the snow on his tongue for the first time, those are the descriptive qualities that you want to talk about. If you're talking about your football team, what does it mean to be on your football team at your school? Are there lots of crowds who come out for your games? Of course not currently. What does it mean to work at the ice cream shop where you work? Tell us about what it smells like at closing time, how the floor is sticky. Bring us into the story. One of the best essays I ever read was about someone who mowed their lawn. And they were talking about the smell of fresh grass and how mowing the lawn was the one time in their life that they were able to escape from all the pressure and stress of school and extracurriculars. Don't write your essay about mowing the lawn, thinking that's the takeaway. We don't want to read 300 essays about that. But write about something that matters to you. Again, it's not the topic, it's how you capture it. Great, and I'm now going to turn it over to my colleague, Dawn, who's going to talk about contextual.
Thanks, Margie. I think when we talk about our admissions world, so basically this is where admissions officers live. So in this world, we tend to use or really overuse a couple of phrases. You'll hear us using "it depends," and a lot of times we'll stretch that out to "it depends on the context." So with the next slide, you're going to see a lot of different quotes from Dr. Maya Angelou. So I lean on Dr. Angelou for my inspiration for this section of our session. So before her passing, Dr. Angelou was a professor at Wake Forest University. So I had the privilege to learn from this author, this poet, this actress, this activist. Now, to understand Dr. Angelou, you had to understand the context of her lived experience. And for us to understand who you are, you must write from the context of your experience. So I would say the writing section of the application is my favorite part of the application. And I think that Patty and Margie would agree with me on this. We really get to understand who you are within the context of your experience, your background, your community, your inspiration, your hardships, your opinions, and your hope for the future. If anything, I think Dr. Angelou's quotes help you to formulate a written response to a prompt that gives us, as admissions officers, the glimpse into your world. how you see your world and the struggles, the challenges, the triumphs, the growth that you've really found nestled in that context, as well as the knowledge of who you are and where you're coming from. So really, when you show us who you are, we believe you. So a good essay does not merely tell us about you, it shows us who you are. So this is achieved by writing what matters to you. So I went to Wake Forest for both undergrad and grad school. And when it came to grad school, again, you have to write another personal statement, an essay about yourself. Now, let me tell you, I actually wrote 2 essays. The first essay was written in a style that I thought maybe the admissions officers wanted to read. But I wasn't writing about anything that mattered to me. It was what I thought others would want to read. I actually looked at it, I ripped it up, and I thought, this isn't me. This doesn't show what matters to me. So I sat down, I wrote a second essay, and I put into that essay what truly mattered, what was important, the essence of myself and in the context of my experience. And it was 10 times, 100 times better than that first essay because I was writing something that mattered to me. So through your writing, we're going to gain an understanding of your sense of community, and we want to understand how you view and interact with the world around you. So even beyond that, so let's think about this added wrinkle, and I'll call it a wrinkle if you will, to the college admissions process that is already fraught with anxiety. So that added wrinkle is a pandemic. And I'm sure I don't have to tell you that living through a pandemic has only intensified the anxiety and stress when it comes to looking at schools, thinking about this next step. Everyone's going through a lot this year, and we also need to put this year into context. So the Common Application actually allows space this year to elaborate on the impact that this pandemic has had on students. This is an optional prompt. It's limited to 250 words, but it allows you to share the impact that you have found with COVID-19. So sharing that context. You don't have to answer, but if you have found that COVID-19 has really affected you in a deep and meaningful way, this is a place to put that. So we understand some things didn't happen, disappointments came at you left and right, but some things may have hit a little harder than others. So this is going to be an important part to give background to your experience and how you've experienced COVID-19. So you can talk about how it affected you personally, thinking about death or loss of a job, loss of income, needing to step up to take care of your family, thinking about technological or academic hardships, really countless ways that COVID-19 has affected the context of your life. So that will be an added piece. But just remember what Dr. Maya Angelou said. So in her quote that I have here, your mission in life is not merely to survive, but to thrive, and do so with passion, compassion, some humor, some style. We actually look forward to learning how you thrive, but also seeing you do so in this next step in your life. Know that we are here for you. We look forward to getting to know you. And I'll say the essays, the short answers, what you submit, this writing section gives us that chance to understand who you are. And we love it and we believe it.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Well, everyone, we are going to transition and take your questions now. So please know that the Q&A box is open. Please feel free to submit your questions. I am going to take this down so you can see our faces primarily while we answer questions. Before we close, I will put up a little bit more information about how to contact our universities and how to take virtual tours at each of our universities if you're curious about learning more about UNC, Duke, and Wake Forest.
We've got some good questions in there. The first one is, would you recommend approaching the why X university question with a similar structure, i.e. using personal anecdotes to answer? So that's a great question. I'll get started and then share. Yeah, we all ask our why Wake Forest, why Duke, why UNC? And I think the most important thing about these essays is you make them specific to the university. I think there's sometimes a mentality that applying to college is like the lottery, and the more entries that you buy, the better your chances are. And that's not that is not the case. You want to be very credible, specific, and targeted in your college search. Why is that school a good match for you? So yes, those personal anecdotes, those personal stories are very important. Also doing your research about the university. Now, we understand you can't visit us in person right now. There are websites, but go deeper than just quoting what you see on the first page of our admissions website. Look at the newspapers and what's happening on the campus. Maybe if you have friends who've attended the schools, find out what their experiences are. Get to know what that campus offers specifically and how it could be a good match for your talents, your aspirations, and your interest.
I think I enjoy reading this why X University, because a lot of these statements can be really compelling. A lot of times students will talk about different classes they hope to take. So that means they've looked at our academic bulletin. They understand what's offered at our school and what excites them when it comes to academics. Sometimes they'll talk about or name professors who they can't wait to study with, or to get to know their material better, or to do research with that professor. They might talk about specific buildings on campus. I think the more specific you are, the more we understand that you have actually done your own research on our universities and how you can come and make a positive change on our campus. And so that allows us to understand, again, a little bit more about you, a little bit more about that work ethic that you have, to dive a little bit deeper and to let us know how you see yourself at our university and how our university will change you for the better as well.
I have nothing to add. Those were great responses. The next question here, which I actually think is a really interesting question, is what are characteristics of essays that are unappealing to an admissions officer? Or perhaps maybe things you should avoid talking about in your essays? I personally, and we all might actually have a different answer to this, personally, I would not talk about something that you cannot tell us a story about, which is sort of what this presentation is, right? You know, Margie from Duke here talked a lot about telling a story. Tell us more about you. One essay I once read said, if I had to choose a logo to represent myself, it would be a boat. I love boats. I think boats are cool. I like fishing on my boat. I like taking my boat out in the afternoon. What would have been a better thing would have been, instead of focus on the boat, focus on the experience that they have on the boat, or why they want to work at a boat shop, or whatever it might be, right? A story about why you care. So an object that you want to talk all about, maybe not. But a story surrounding that and why that's meaningful to you, absolutely. Another thing, and this is basic, cruelty. Please don't be mean. Consider what you're saying. Consider what you're saying about other people. Tell the truth, and not everyone's a saint. So if you want to tell a story about someone who perhaps was not very kind, that is fine. But if you are then unkind, that says a lot to us. I'm not sure if you all have anything else you'd like to add to that.
I think going back to the why X University is just don't be generic. And don't spell Duke, UNC, or WFU in your essay, which I sometimes see that. Yeah, Duke starts with a D, not W-A-K-E-A. So we know you're applying to a lot of schools, but just don't just say I want to go to a college that's near a metropolitan area and that has lots of research opportunities and study abroad, because that's basically every college. Really, again, dig deeper and think specifically about what that school, their ethos, their values, how that is a match for you. So that is always a turnoff when I see an essay that could apply to any college in the country. And I think other than that, again, it's not the topic, because I know there's certain topics that people feel are taboo. It's how you deal with the topic that matters.
And I think too, so we have prompts in an essay for a reason. One, of course, we want to get to know you, but we also are looking at your character, your curiosity, your open-mindedness. And so we want those to really shine through. We want to know that when we're admitting students, that we're admitting students who will show good character, will be good citizens. but also we'll be open-minded. I think college is a time where you're learning so much about people who coming from different backgrounds, coming from those different contexts. And so being willing to do the work to understand and respect others. So we ask these questions to get to know those pieces and those parts of who you are. I think if you write an essay that you wouldn't want to show your grandma, you probably also don't want to submit it to an admissions office. We read absolutely everything that you submit. And so if it's something that you feel like might be cringeworthy, I would hold back from submitting that. I also think about essays that are written about somebody else. So you spend the whole time describing and telling us how incredible somebody is. A lot of times we actually just want to admit the person that you're talking about. So as hard as it is to talk about yourself or maybe humbly brag about yourself, we want you to do that. We want you to be proud of who you are, where you've come from, what you've overcome, your triumphs. But I think most of all, we do have these questions for a reason, and we're excited to get to know you. As I mentioned, we get excited to read this part of the application because it is, as Patty said, this is you. This is the essence of who you are. And so I would say, show that good character, show that depth of thought and open-mindedness and respect for others.
There's another question on here. And I promise I'll let y'all pick questions too. But there's another question on here that I really appreciate. One of you was very vulnerable with us and said, I'm gay, but I want to talk about writing, or I want to write about walking my dogs. Should I write about being openly gay in the rural South or about my favorite thing, which is walking my dogs? The advice I would have for that is write about the thing that you think we should understand about you. What do you think we need to know about you and learn about you so that way we can make a decision on whether or not you're a good fit in our class? I also would let you know, different universities have different essay numbers. Some universities will only require 1, some require 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever it may be. So the more essay prompts you have, the more opportunities you have to talk about yourself. UNC, for example, requires the 1 long on the common application or coalition application and 2 short answers. Those are only 250 words a piece. Those are pretty short. It's a short paragraph. It's not a lot of space. So when I answer that question, I say, if you were to choose to apply to UNC, what are the 3 things you think we need to know about you before we can make a decision? If you think that your identity as an openly gay person in the rural South is one of the most important things about you that will help us understand you the most, talk about that. If you think us understanding the joy you feel or whatever emotion you feel when you walk your dogs and how that has shaped your life, or if there's a story behind that that you think we should know, you should talk about walking your dogs. So that's entirely up to you. I would challenge you to think, what is the thing that I want them to most know and understand about me? That's how I would answer that.
Great. And I think I second that. And that is very connected to another question we received. Does your personal statement have to be a biography of sorts, or can it address an individual topic, experience, or perspective that I hold? And what I think about with the essay is, again, as Patty and Dawn very eloquently put it, we want to know who you are, but we don't need to, I was born on this date, and get a day-by-day tracing of your life history. What I think about it is an upside down pyramid. So you're going to start with a point of something that was meaningful and life-changing, so a time when you changed the way you thought about something because of a friend that you were exposed to, by something that you read, by something you experienced, and how that shaped you in a broader sense. So don't start broadly and try to tell us everything that you are and everything that you value and everything that means to you, but talk about an experience that shaped you in a more broad way.
Mm-hmm.
And I think focus is really good. I think, as Margie's saying, you can be very broad, but you may lose a lot of context, a lot of information, a lot of details that you want us to narrow in on or focus in on. So I guess do the work for us in a sense and focus on something really specific. And the personal statement can really be anything. I think, again, you don't want to waste this opportunity. You want to convey to us what's really important about you that may not be anywhere else on the application. Of course, we're going to see your transcript and with the grades and your courses, and we'll read recommendations and we'll see your activities. So don't waste the opportunity of telling us something more. So going beyond what we're going to see kind of in the normal context of the application. This is your time to focus in on something that is truly important to you, that you feel like will let us know what sets you apart from other applicants to our universities.
Speaking of topics, one question that we've gotten from a few students is, what are overused topics, the most common topics, topics I should avoid? We've gotten that from a handful of you, so I think that would probably be a good one for us to address. I mean, I think the common stereotype that you'll often hear is, don't write about a mission trip or a service trip, because everyone writes about a service trip, right? Speaking very frankly, y'all are probably 17, you might be 18, you might be 16 years old when you're applying for admission to a university. You can't begin to create and form true memories until you're about 3 years old, right? None of us really have. We might have like a memory or two from when we're 2 years old, but you can remember 3 years. So 17 minus 3, you've got 14 years of life experience. Your memories are probably in and out and a little fuzzy, at least for the first few, right? So let's just knock 4 more years off of that, 10 years. You've got 10 years of life when you've gone to elementary school, middle school, and high school, and you've had very similar experiences. So no, we are used to reading similar things over and over and over again, and that is not necessarily a bad thing. So your job is not to completely blow our minds and rock our world and tell us the one thing that we will never hear again for the rest of our lives, all right? So that is not your job. Your job is to tell us about the thing, however unusual or mundane it is, from your perspective, right? With your creativity, with your intellect. That's what we're going for. So in terms of bad topics, I'm not sure that there is a bad topic. There's a poorly written topic or an uncreative response to the topic. So if you're talking about the service trip, I've read a lot of essays that are very boring about service trips, because they say, I went to this place, I helped these people, wow, I didn't know what poverty was, now my life has changed and I'm so lucky to have the privilege that I do. That stays very surface. Some of the best essays I've read have also been about service trips, and they've been from students who talked not so much about the service that they did, but about their perspective on the world that shifted after that experience. Or they did further research on white people going to countries where there are not a lot of white people acting as the white savior, trying to help those people and actually causing more harm than good, right? And what does that mean? USAID, where's the money going? There's a lot of controversy about that, right? So, and whatever your opinion, that's fine. But those essays, digging beneath the surface a little bit, going beyond just, I had this experience and it was nice, that's what's really going to drive home your point.
I think one of the misconceptions about admissions essays, and Dawn addressed this when she was talking about her graduate school essay, is that people want to write what they think we want to hear. And there's also certain tropes. In addition to the mission trip, the other one I would say is ACL, Torm's ACL. But again, it's not that. I've read some great essays about that, and I've read some very trope and trite essays about torn ACLs. So it's not the topic, it's the way that it's handled. But a lot of people think that they need to be perfect in these essays, that if Mother Teresa and Superman had a baby, that you are actually that love child, and that you are here to save the world. We want to know your vulnerabilities. We want to know about the times you failed, because if you think back on your 14 years that you actually remember, that's when you actually changed. Those are the things that really matter. It's not when you scored the winning touchdown, but when you missed it. It's not when you got the A on the test, but when you struggled in the class. Those are the times in our lives that shape us into the person that we are becoming. And when you come to our colleges, you're also going to have some trials and tribulations. And we want to know how you respond to that and how you grow from that. So don't be afraid to be vulnerable. Don't try to be perfect.
I think too, we're human. You see, we sit on admissions committees, we read all these different essays, applications, and we sit with other members of our committees as well. We all come from different backgrounds. We have different opinions and ideas. And so we get really excited to read what your opinions and ideas are. And so you're not writing to one specific kind of person. What will happen is what you write about will probably resonate with at least one, if not more, of us on the admissions committee. And so again, don't write what you think we want to hear, write what matters to you, because that will carry that passion through for us to understand. And that's the most important piece. We want you to be authentic and real, because we want to know the person that we're reading or what we're reading about will be that person and your ideas when you get to our campus. Basically, we're gaining an understanding of what a professor and your fellow classmates will be hearing from you, understanding and learning from you by reading your essay and by reading what really excites you. We also get really emotional over your essays too. I've had many essays where I actually have to walk away from reading applications because the student has shared something so deep and so moving and so powerful that it had an effect on me. And so again, we're human and we will react to what you write. And so we want that passion, we want that perspective, we want your viewpoints to come through. And like I was saying, it definitely will resonate with at least one, if not more, members on the committee.
Another question is it better to show your intellectual part of you or your creative part, or both? Which I think is a great question.
That is a great question. Yeah.
I would say what we wanted to show is your real you. Someone else asked about what format it should be in. And I will tell you, I've read great essays that were written in poetry form. I've read really painful essays that are written in poetry form. If you're not a poet, now's not the time to try that out. If you're not a comedian, now's not the time to try out your comedy routine. Be yourself. Write the essay that reflects the people that know you best. So this is something you probably have heard from admissions officers before, is if your essay were to fall, now this in pre-COVID times, in the middle of your cafeteria at your school, and someone were to pick it up and it didn't have your name on it, your best friend could read that and say, I know exactly who wrote this essay. It's in your voice. It's like if you're texting, but without don't use texting abbreviations. That's what, but don't use a thesaurus. Don't use words that are not natural to you. So be who you are. So if you think of yourself as intellectual and that's what you want to highlight, then write about a very esoteric essay. If you think of yourself as creative, think outside the box. Be very creative in that essay. Don't be restrained. Write the essay that only you can write.
And we're building a college campus or a community. And so we're inviting students with different backgrounds and talents and ideas to our respective campuses. So we're looking for students who are deeply intellectual, students who are incredibly artistic, and everywhere in between, or a mixture of both. And so again, yeah, showcase you. In the essay, the short answer is this is the best place for that. And so that gives us a sense of what our campus will look like when all of our admitted students show up and are there, whether it's going to a basketball game or going to a dance concert or being in a dance concert or, playing on the football team. But we're building a community. And so we want students who really come from different ideological backgrounds and different opinions and all of that. And so a lot of that comes from this essay section, understanding who you are. So again, I guess we keep hitting this idea home, showcase you. So who the true you is. There's a question here. I know we're talking about essays, but the application as a whole, part of that may be SAT, ACT, part of that may be not. And so the question here, as it's written, what does test optional mean? And then are the universities seeking ACT, SAT scores, if at all possible? And will it be beneficial to submit scores versus not submitting? So I'm gravitating towards this question basically because I come from a test optional university. So I can tell you exactly what that means. It means that if you want us to evaluate your scores, you send them in, we will evaluate. If you'd like to withhold those scores, we will not evaluate them. So that is up to you. That is your option that you may choose to take or withhold those scores. Totally up to you if you submit or don't. We don't try to guess what that score is. We don't think it might be lower because you didn't submit. Because what we do actually after our students are enrolled, we do ask for those scores so we can have our middle 50%. And sometimes we will see students with scores that are deemed on the high range. And what we understand, and they'll even tell us through the application, that they've done the research or read the research of why, for us, why we went test optional. So you can see there's a huge bias in standardized testing. And for us, it was a roadblock for students who were incredible in the classroom, intellectually gifted, incredibly curious, but because of their background, we're not able to perform as well in a standardized test. And so with that research, we felt like we wanted to take away that roadblock. And so we went test optional many years ago. I think we're bordering on double digits at this point. And so for us, it was really important. And so we give students that option to submit scores or not. So if you feel like you want us to see it, great. If not, that's great too. I think I had a colleague at one point who described the SAT or ACT, if it was submitted, like an additional recommendation. It's just an additional piece of information for us to know if you want us to know that additional piece of information.
And Duke and UNC are test optional this year. And we mean that genuinely. We do not want anyone to put themselves, their health or their mental health at risk to seek a test. You will be fully considered for admission and for scholarships without a test score. So again, it's your option. It truly is your option whether to submit or not. Another question that we received is from a 10th grader, and she said, I've never really written research papers, essays. How should one write an essay? I know you have to include an introduction and conclusion, but how exactly should one write an essay? And again, don't think about it as a typical essay with a conclusion and an introduction. Think about it as a story that you tell. So you might even want to start verbally telling somebody a story of something that happened to you that was meaningful. Whatever it is, or just tell, it could be a story about, I love this, I got an essay about someone wrote about the contents of their very messy car. So the wrappers in the car, I can relate to that completely. But it really kind of represented their life and the different activities. And, they had the lacrosse sticks in the back, and they had the crumpled food, food, and they had, their kids, sister had some Play-Doh that got stuck in the back because they helped take care of their kids. So all that Cheerios, all the things that I, again, can relate to. Think about something that is meaningful to you beyond its inherent value. So something maybe in your room, something that you treasure, and how did it become a treasure for you? Something that is more valuable than anybody could ever pay you for. Maybe it's something that your grandmother gave you. Maybe it's something that you won or earned. So lots of different ways to think about it, but think about the story behind something. Tell us that story. Again, verbally tell somebody that story, and then you can start writing it down, kind of shape it so that, grammatically it flows. But don't think about it as a regimented essay like you would write a research paper. There's no need to research. This paper is you. You know this topic better than anybody else.
I saw that question come through, and to the student, I see your name, but for privacy reasons, I won't say it. Thank you for submitting that. I'm glad you asked that. Something that I've thought about a lot, and that's come up a lot when I've worked with students who, especially younger students, and you're in 10th grade, so you've got some time. But if you're in 11th grade, if you're a senior this year and you're like about to click submit on your applications, you can practice this too. Now, you're probably going to roll your eyes at me, and that is okay. I understand. I can't see you, so roll away. If I were you, I would take up journaling if you don't already. For so many of us, whether you go to a public school, whether you go to a private school that's able to do a little bit more hands-on work with you or not, whether you're homeschooled, whatever it is, virtual, in-person, whatever it is you're doing. In school, they teach you how to write academic essays. So to the student who's in 10th grade, you will write eventually a research paper and an academic essay at some point when you're in high school. You're going to get practice doing that. What's not taught nearly as often, if at all anymore, is how to write a personal essay. So when you submit your research paper or your essay to your English teacher, they're going to circle every time you use the letters and words I, me, we, you, mine, and cross them out with a big red pen, right? You're supposed to be the third party researcher, separate from the idea. You absolutely need to use I, me, we, our, mine, all of those pronouns, personal pronouns in your college essay. So if you can, and I know you have a lot on your plate and you don't want to add another thing, and it sounds silly. We all come from the journaling generation. We're older than you. So we all know what it's like to write down our thoughts and handwrite them. I recommend you handwrite. Just get some paper, get a notebook, anything, and once a week, it can be, you can pick whatever time. My time that I do this, that I did this, I did it a lot in college. I wish I had done it sooner, was on Fridays when I would go back to my dorm room after going to class. It took about an hour to decompress. You can make it 15 minutes, you can make it 30 minutes, and just write about your week. What happened? What did you like? What did you not like? What's on your mind? And write about that. And over time, if you go back and read these, you'll find that your writing gets more and more sophisticated. You're going to pontificate on those ideas. You're telling your future self that story. And that's a really good way to practice personal writing, because you're not going to get that in school. The education system is just not going to give that to you in America. So, or North Carolina, even though it's great, it's not going to give that to you. So that's my best advice on figuring out how to write. And that way you can get outside of the 5-paragraph essay, formal introduction, formal conclusion, where I restate my ideas. You don't need that in college essay.
I'm inspired now. I'm ready to get, it's important. It really is important to write those ideas down. And then you can even go back. It's also this great historic record that you have. It's also great, like you say, for your mental health. And I think at this time where we are right now, mental health is so important to taking care of yourself. It's very cathartic. So it works in many ways. So that's it. That's right there. I think if you learn nothing else from what has been said, I think that's definitely important, is that journaling, that cathartic sharing of what has happened, who you are, what you're thinking about at that time, maybe through the week. But yes, yeah. Amen.
We've probably got time for one more quick question.
Yeah, we have a hard stop coming up in 3 minutes. The one that kind of resonated with me is, should politics be mentioned at all? Which I think is a very interesting topic, especially right now as we head into the elections in a battleground state in North Carolina. So I'll turn it over to you, because I've done a lot of talking, but I'll address it if there's anything.
Politics is fine to talk about, just be respectful. So again, cruelty, don't be cruel. I think that universities are often construed as the liberal places. And yes, I do think there are a lot of liberal ideas. I think universities historically, since they gotten started, have been progressive. Progressive may or may not be political. You might politicize it, you might not. Totally up to you. I think it's fine to talk about politics as long as you're kind and state why you think what you do, and you're able to ration it and reason it. But I'm not looking for a whole bunch of liberal people or a whole bunch of conservative people. Your opinion is your opinion, and that's fine. I'm not going to judge you for that. I'm not going to look at you funny for that unless you're mean. And there are mean people on all sides, both major parties and all the other parties in between. So don't be mean, and you can talk about whatever you want. That's my opinion.
And I think too, that shows that you're really plugged into the world around you. So if you're able to talk in a substantive way about politics and show your opinion, but also be open-minded, because there are different opinions in this world too. I think it does show that you're plugged in though, and aware, which is also going to be really important when it comes to this process, is being aware of the world around you.
So let's go ahead and get our information up here. Thank you so much for joining us. I know there were a ton more questions that we got. Have no fear, we're going to get your information. I believe we're going to get your email addresses, and we'll be able to follow up with you individually and answer your questions in a bit more depth. So if we didn't answer your question live tonight, we will be answering your question. I promise. Give us a little bit of time. Give us about a week or so to get our ducks in a row, but we will be answering your question. We would love for you to come and visit virtually our campuses. So you will see here the links, the direct links to our visit pages where you can take our virtual tours. You can also sign up for virtual information sessions. You'll also see all of our admissions offices' emails and phone numbers. We are accessible, even though we're working from home. I hope you think that we're nice. I hope you got that sense from us tonight. We're actually very friendly. Admissions officers are very nice. They want to admit you. They want you to succeed. They're on your side, whether you're a good fit for that school or not. So if you've got any questions about our 3 universities, please do not feel bad. Do not hesitate to call or email us. We would be more than happy to help you out.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you all for joining us, and thank you all so much for that information. It was very reflective, and everyone I'm sure enjoyed it. When you close this window, you will receive a link to a short 4-question survey. We appreciate any feedback that you can provide us as an attendee. Also, this was just one of many sessions that will be going on for the next month. So feel free to view the full schedule at CACRAO.org. That's CACRAO.org. And in about a week's time, this recording will be made available also to be viewed on the CACRAO.org website. Thank you all, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.